The city of Milwaukee has two flags, both essentially the official flag, but with one being recognized by the government and the other being recognized and used by its citizens. But why is that? How can a place have two city flags? The Milwaukee government has always had an issue with its flag. After incorporating in 1846, there were several lackluster attempts to create a lasting Milwaukee flag, none of which the city really held on to. Finally, in 1954, the city finally settled on this design, but only after having a contest and still not adopting the winning design, presumably because it was too simple. So they came up with this, the first official Milwaukee flag. This design is literally nicknamed the kitchen sink flag, because that seems to be the only thing not put into it. It has over a dozen symbols scattered throughout, with two separate symbols to industry, a depiction of a baseball stadium that isn't even there anymore, and a depiction of a native person that in modern contexts is considered to be problematic in the gentlest terms. In other words, time has not been kind to this flag. So, if the flag is so outdated, why hasn't it been replaced? Well, it wasn't for a lack of trying. Milwaukee's government has had two official campaigns to adopt a new design for the flag, neither of which resulting in anything being adopted, with little explanation as to why. It seems that the old adage proves itself again, as the Milwaukee government has a flag issue. But more recently, a movement began in 2015 by a local designer, Steve Kotis, partnered with the nonprofit Greater Together, aimed to find the flag that would finally replace the old one. And Kotis had a mission. His mission was less based on politics and more focused on the design itself, because he argues that the current official flag is not an effective symbol for the city. So, he went out educating and helping the public create their own designs of what they thought the new flag should be. He called this effort the People's Flag of Milwaukee, named so because it was a grassroots effort run by the people, completely independent of local government, as this clearly seems to be an issue with them. So the government was not at all involved with the people's flag at any point during its initial development. Back to the design. Kotis attacked the old flag almost scientifically, using the basic principles of flag design created by NAVA, the North American Vexillological Society, and can be summed up in three major points: simplicity, effective symbolism, and distinctiveness, all in which the old flag fails, being incredibly complex in design, having too many and too literal symbols, and being relatively distinct, but for the wrong reasons. Let's look at this compared to Chicago's flag, where the flag achieves these principles with flying colors, pun very much intended. What the Chicago flag does especially well is its symbolism, perfectly promoting big events in the city's history, and giving a small pseudo-geography lesson, subtly emphasizing the difference of the north and south sides of the city. Kotis and his team were looking for something like the Chicago flag to represent their city, and after a year-long process, out of 5 finalists, this design, called Sunrise Over the Lake, was chosen and unveiled in 2016. All that was left to do was to bring their design to City Hall. After the unveiling in 2016, the team decided to ease off the throttle, releasing the design into the public domain to let it truly be accepted by the people. And it was. The people's flag has become a symbol for the city. People actually care about this design, and many businesses and other facilities actually use it because it's actually good. It passes the principles and has become an institution for the city of Milwaukee. So let's go a little deeper into the principles for the people's flag. For simplicity, it does well. 4 colors and basically 4 distinct shapes make the design easily recognizable and easy to replicate. For symbolism, the sunset over Lake Michigan motif isn't exactly particular to Milwaukee, but it's a solid, simple design choice representing an important aspect of the city. The gold for the beer industry is a clever and subtle choice that harkens back to the city's arguably most iconic aspect. The 3 lighter blue bars stand for the 3 rivers of Milwaukee and the 3 cities that became one in its incorporation, mentioning both geography and history in one effective stroke. The white symbolizes peace and unity, because that's just what white symbolizes. I think they kind of missed the mark on this one. They could have used a more cream color for the sun to represent the Cream City, one of Milwaukee's iconic nicknames, but overall, it's still a decent choice. And for distinctiveness, while a celestial body isn't exactly the most unique concept, this flag does decently well in its ability to be different. This is paired with the fact that the people have accepted it and made it their own. So if the design is this solid and the city has accepted it, why is it still not the official flag? And here's where we come to a head with city politics, as, shockingly enough, the government has had trouble choosing a flag. This time, it's due to three major reasons. Reason 1, politics. This has a few layers, all stemming from the idea that the aldermen took issue with CODIS not coming to them first with this idea, which is frankly ridiculous given their track record. But one claim that the Milwaukee Common Council had was more credible in saying that there wasn't enough political support for the new flag from Milwaukeeans. This could be a drawback of CODIS's team waiting a year and a half to meet with the council instead of capitalizing on the support they had at the unveiling. But they might have needed that time to let the design gain steam. But what's done is done, and now they've got politicians claiming that there isn't enough political support, which can be attributed to people either not caring about the flag, not knowing it's not the official flag, or not minding that it's not the official one, given it's the people's flag. This reason seems to be the cheapest one, but it lays the groundwork on which the other two are built. Reason 2, Reno's flag. Another drawback of waiting to push adoption is that other cities make flags too. And that's exactly what the city of Reno, Nevada did. In April of 2018, they adopted this flag, which does admittedly look somewhat similar to the people's flag. And the big issue is, Reno's campaign started after the people's flag was released, and they adopted it well before CODIS met with the Milwaukee city government. And ironically, they did it so quickly because they worked within the government to begin its own campaign with a task force, which somewhat adds to the argument that this should have been done through the Milwaukee government in the first place, but there's no avoiding it at that point. Design-wise, this does throw the distinctiveness aspect of Milwaukee's flag into question, but honestly, they don't look too similar that someone could really blame plagiarism or that they could really be confused. And since the people have already accepted the flag, this point should really be moot, but it isn't to the lawmakers. And finally, we have reason 3, issues with the process. This is the most legitimate issue and does have to do with politics, but it's important to separate because this is the main crux that the council has been leaning on because of its impact for the city. The main argument against the people's flag being adopted is the issue that the council had with the process of creating and voting, that the standards of both were not to the satisfaction of the government. Basically, they claimed there wasn't enough minority outreach, with a secondary issue that the voting was almost entirely online, which could have been an impediment to certain citizens for a variety of reasons. And here's the thing, both of these are valid arguments. As much as we've been criticizing the government, this one makes sense. In a city that is trying to struggle its way out of being one of the most segregated cities in America, it makes sense that they want to be as inclusive as possible to their citizens, who often feel the least heard. Now, there are some arguments against this, the first being that a major contributor to the push for the people's flag was Greater Together, a nonprofit that promotes social and economic equality in creative industries within Greater Milwaukee. But there were still mistakes in the process. It seems pretty clear that these issues were more oversights than outright discrimination, but that doesn't really matter to the government, and they've essentially been using it as a shield from all other criticism. Finally, what has been done recently? I know there was a lot of information thrown around, but let's get back to what it all means. We have the old flag that is still official, and the people's flag seems to be in a political limbo, but really it's not anymore, as a hearing in April of 2019 basically affirmed that Milwaukee does deserve a new flag, mostly because of the racist depiction on it, but the people's flag methods were unacceptable, so they commissioned a brand new push to design and adopt a new flag, which they hope to be finished within the next year. So it seems that the people's flag has essentially lost its fight, but did it really lose? In a way, it kind of achieved the goal that CODIS set out for it, to be a symbol the city can rally behind. So at this point, maybe it doesn't matter what's deemed official. The city claims that it will have a new official flag at some point, but due to COVID and the city's track record, it's likely that nothing comes from it. One might not expect that a city's flag could have so much contention and disagreement, but here we are, 2 flags and a possible third one later. But this story isn't finished yet. There is a possibility that anyone can create the next Milwaukee flag, but for now, we have a great symbol with the people's flag of Milwaukee.